Hello, Sloan. Eton College, founded by a king just a stone's throw from Windsor Castle. For nearly 6 centuries, it's been the cradle of Britain's power. The closest thing the country has to a finishing school for kings, prime ministers, and maharajas. Even the swans glide by with entitlement. In 21, 13-year-old Ian Fleming arrived at Eton, like his father, brothers, and childhood friend Ivor Bryce, ready to pass through gates that would one day educate princes. And then there's the school uniform. Can we talk about the uniform? Not a khaki in sight, black tailcoat, stiff white collar, pinstripe trousers, and that flash of silk at the neck? Over the top? Absolutely. Still, it's magic. The uniform helps even the most awkward boy assume the attire of the aristocracy without awe or self-consciousness. Ian's relationship with Eton would always be complicated. He sported an Eton tie all his life. Eton even furnished the names of his fiction, the Chitties, Blofeld, and Scaramanga, all ended up in the pages of Bond. He left without graduating, yet admitted if he ever had a son, he'd put his name on the waiting list shortly after birth. Ian and Peter boarded at the Timbrels, one out of 25 boarding houses at Eton, with Sam Slater as their housemaster. Oh, no nonsense bachelor, who thoroughly enjoyed disciplining young lads with a cane on their bare bottom, as was tradition at Eton. At high noon, no one shed a tear years later when Slater fell to his death in a climbing accident. Yet the irony is unavoidable. Fleming would orphan James Bond in almost the same way. His parents killed high above Chamonix when Bond was 11, but there's a Fleming room now, in the very house where the Fleming boys and decades later Eddie Redmayne boarded. The walls now lined with James Bond posters and book jackets. But back then only Peter was dazzling the place. Athlete. Scholar. Uber popular golden boy. Ian walked straight into his brother's shadow and couldn't claw his way out. It wasn't just what Peter did, but the style in which he did it. He was completely outstanding, literally called one of the great almighty tremendous ones. Ian's brother-in-law described their golf in his novel The Coat. When he wrote, Tim stole a look at his elder brother, but the dazzle was too much. Peter was also elected into POP, the social society at the school. At Eton, POP is power. Self-electing, visible, and untouchable. Membership signals social supremacy. Institutional approval. The right to command. This matters because Eton is a training ground for the British ruling class, and POP is his inner cabinet. POP members also set style and control social life. The only students allowed to wear a bespoke colored waistcoat of their own choosing, signaling they're the most privileged and powerful students at Eton. Peter was elected to POP without trying. Ian was not. On Ian's first attempt to join, he was blackballed. No appeal, no explanation, only silence. For someone like Ian, this was devastating. Not because he wanted POP's approval, but because it declared him unfit to rule. From that moment on, Ian became obsessed, not with power itself, but with the mechanics of access. For a boy of intelligence and appetite, the mind doesn't move on, it studies the gate. Pop taught Ian that access, secrecy, and glamour were the true currencies of power. He spent the rest of his life mastering all three. Power restricts access. Secrecy creates asymmetry. Glamour commands without force. When someone enters a room with glamour, the room adjusts to them. That's power in motion. Which is why Bond wears a tuxedo but answers to no one. Academically, Ian struggled at Eton. He ran up a series of demerits for behavior and unsatisfactory schoolwork. Even his younger brother Richard called his behavior at Eton difficult, idle, and erratic. So he compensated by cultivating his originality. He possessed a caustic wit and turn of phrase. He slicked back his hair, tucked silk handkerchiefs in his pocket, gestures his headmasters found irritating and flashy, which of course was the point. Ian also mixed more comfortably with older boys. Chief among them, Ivor Bryce, heir to a fertilizer fortune. Bryce's good looks and wicked humor offered Ian an early taste of the exotic. Later nicknamed Burglar Bryce for his habit of stealing wives and daughters, he was the perfect brother without rivalry. At Eton, their friendship ripened into rebellion, pranks, truancy, and girls. A better Douglas motorbike became their passport to freedom, unauthorized midnight escapes that Bryce later recalled as moments that sealed their friendship. Even then, Bryce noted something essential. Ian needed solitude. This wasn't social failure, but discipline. In a world that watched, ranked, and compared, solitude was the only place originality could survive. Away from Peter's brilliance and the school's demands, Ian could think uninterrupted. This habit took hold because writing like espionage requires disappearance before it produces revelation. Where Ian showed promise was sports. Athletically, he excelled, preferring rugged individualism to team sports. He broke his nose playing rugby. A metal plate on his bridge gave him that rakish look that never quite faded. 24 was his breakthrough year with a Pathé newsreel highlight video. He won the high jump and the Victor Ladorum, Latin for winner of the games, a trophy presented to the most successful competitor 2 years in a row. No one had done it before or since, something he wouldn't live down for 40 years. He wrote home to his mother. I saw myself on the cinema, a terrible face covered with sweat, with mouth wide open, such is fame. Most remarkably, he went after being caned. His running shorts still stand with his score. That love of movement, toughness, and style, of physical courage wrapped in elegance, would become the hallmark of Bond himself. In 25, Ian was elected to Pop, thanks in part to Peter's sponsorship. But by then the lessons had already been learned. While Peter and Ivor breezed toward Oxford, Ian struggled. His mother intervened, pulling royal strings to place him in Eton's army class. Royal Sandhurst Military School, Churchill's alma mater. Sandhurst, not quite the path for slow learners, but close enough to sting. Ian never forgave her for it. Ian left Eton prematurely. The official explanation remains vague. Rumor involves a girl, a midnight rendezvous, and one adventure too many. Whatever the truth, Ian Fleming's Eton years were over. But from rebellion, access, secrecy, and glamour, the architecture of James Bond was locked in. formed by the boy who refused to behave. Stay tuned for the next episode of Hello Sloan for Deb's Discipline and Disaster, Ian Fleming at Sandhurst, Britain's elite military academy, a jealous impulse, a reckless decision, and a scandal that would send him quietly out of uniform toward a destiny no parade ground could have predicted.